No, it's like 110 to 120. It was like
Does that
115. Yeah, it was pretty.
Good morning. Welcome to the meeting of the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors for Monday, June 3rd, 2019. I'm going to call the meeting to order. First item of business is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Jeff has moved, Santos has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is to receive comments from the public. Any members of the public wishing to address the board on an item that is not on our agenda? All right, sir. Please go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Jim Meredith, 1986 Bayfield Road. I've had an issue with my ditch and culvert at the other farm in 1972. I brought it to the attention of the county engineer when back in about 5-6 years ago when they fixed a culvert to my east. I showed him it and nothing's been done. Kenny did come out last fall and look at it and agree that something needed to be done. Since then, of course, we've had rain. What happens, the water runs down the road, it can and can't run into the ditch. What does run into the ditch is higher than my field, so it all runs down into my field, and then the rest runs down my driveway and goes towards the creek, and it's washing my creek bank out. There was dirt hauled in there from Seven Springs Farm 4 years ago. I filled that ditch in twice, and it's washed back out because of all the water that comes down through there. I've got pictures to show you. It needs to be fixed. I damn near lost a calf in there last week. I had to pull it out. It fell in there. And I mean, this ditch is probably 10 foot across, 10, 12 foot long, and damn near 6 foot deep. And there's nothing to stop it. The water comes down through there and washes it out. And I'm really wanting something to happen. I've been told that I have to replace the culvert. It won't do any good to replace the culvert because the ditch needs cleaned out. So it's just kind of a combination of everything that needs to be fixed.
Do you have the pictures?
Yes. It's hard to take pictures of it. The first one is, there you can see the ditch. Ditch is higher than my field. The water just comes down the road and goes right down my driveway.
Did the county engineer discuss maybe putting a dry creek or anything like that in there to try to help avoid
What?
some of that? A dry creek? Like where you put in rock? Bigger rock?
Well, I mean, the problem would be solved if they just cleaned the ditch out and put the culvert back in. They tried to tell me there was no culvert there, but when I went out to the county, they looked back in records and yeah, by golly, there is a culvert there.
Where, at the field entrance there, Jim?
Yeah, right there at that picture, that first
first
picture you
one?
looked at, there's culvert running across there. Like I said, Kenny came out last fall, but it was late, and anything was gonna happen last fall, I knew that. But I'm just trying to bring this to your attention now, so something could be done before the summer's over, and it's like, gee, it's too late again.
What's the address that this is at? You said this was.
In 1972 is where it's
Okay.
running down the road, or down the lane.
The driveway's the one on the northeast corner of the property.
Northeast corner of 1972?
Yeah.
Yes. Are you looking at it? There should be some grain bins and stuff?
Yep.
Yep, that's it.
Maybe.
Yep, that's it.
Just,
So it'd be to the right of the grain bins.
Okay. So yeah, it run just to that east side of the grain bins
East
then?
side of the grain bins?
West side of the grain bins.
West side. Between the grain bins and the drive then?
Yeah, that drive is the creek that comes down through there, yes. You want me to show you?
Yeah,
He
yeah,
comes running
I've
down.
got the picture. if you want to
He's
show.
come running down there,
So it's coming right
coming right down your drive.
right here.
Yeah, comes down the drive, and cuts across and goes right there in that
Gotcha.
thing.
Okay, gotcha.
And, I mean, I'd have to build a structure to stop it. And I mean, it's never eroded there in my lifetime until the water started coming down off of the road.
And that, you said that started happening when?
Well, I came back to the farm in 2007. We had all that rain in 2008. So I'm not sure when, when it started going down the road like that, or down the lane like that. But it's been really bad since I've been back. You want to see these, Keith?
Okay, we're good. We'll talk about it, follow up with it.
Okay. Thanks for bringing it to our attention, Jim.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to address the board? Okay, seeing none, then we move on to number 4. Discussion and possible action to approve claims dated June 3rd, 2019, the amount of $591,774.36.
Move to approve.
Second.
Jeff has moved, Santos has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we entertain a vote to go into, or rather, we will have a public hearing on a request from Robert E. and Deborah D. Arndt, record owners, to rezone approximately 15.92 acres in 76 Township from C2 Commercial District to R1 Residential. Morning, Eric.
Morning. On May 3rd, public hearing was held with the zoning commission to consider this request. The zoning commission did recommend to you folks unanimously to rezone this property. A little shy of 16 acres. This is up at the top of Isley's Hill to make you familiar with where it's at, kind of on the south side of Highway 61, just before it starts to curve, kind of head to Eliza County. This is, I think, the most important thing to reach a decision on this. It's a downward departure in potential land use. This had been previously years ago zoned commercial, so it would allow for some pretty intensive businesses, land uses in that area. I really don't believe anymore that area is really a good, that commercial would be a real great idea out there. It's considerable distance away, way up the hill from the city, so the chance of, city water, sewer, 4-lane highway right there, access. So anyway, the owner desires to rezone it downward from C2 to R1 residential. Probably come back before you in a little while. It's successful rezoning and asked to subdivide it into just a couple very large lots. He's got a couple children that I believe wish to move to the property. So from staff's perspective, anything that's a downward departure in potential land use intensity and is a good idea in that area. It's more consistent with what's there. There's an older subdivision to the south, Woodland Hills. It's not prime farm ground, and even if it would be, it was already previously zoned commercial. So this would more limit the type of uses that could go into that property, and staff believes this is a good idea that's more consistent with the adjacent property uses, which is agricultural and residential by and large.
It looked like notes from the public hearing, there were no neighbors that objected, and I agree with you, it looks like it's more in fitting with the area than even the commercial.
Yep.
So would they be rezoned into 5-acre lots or?
Well, right now, the entire 15.92 parcel would just be one parcel of residential. They have not proposed anything for a subdivision yet.
Okay.
we haven't really had any discussions other than he's only got 1 or 2 kids, so I don't think.
They told me that this was the first step, and then I would have to like propose a subdivision. It's just for my kids. If my kids don't take ground, I ain't selling it to nobody, I ain't giving it to nobody. But my kids wanna move into L&M school district. Other than down in the Fruitland area where everything's a little cashy, I got this ground and I can give them a chunk, they can build a house. It's a win-win, they get what they want, the county gets a couple more houses they can tax. I mean, you know, it's not gonna happen immediately, but I was told this was the first step, was to get it rezoned, so.
Makes sense.
I'll move to approve.
Well, we need to close the
Oh,
public hearing.
sorry.
Yep.
I'll move a closed public hearing.
Second.
Jeff has moved, Scott has seconded, this is a roll call.
That's Santos, sorry.
Santos
Scott
second.
says good? Good Scott.
Which one do you want it?
Oh, okay, I didn't hear Scott, okay, I thought you, okay.
Pick one, it'll be fine.
We'll give it to Santos this
There
time.
you go.
All right, this is a roll call vote to close the public hearing. Santos?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Scott? Aye. Doug? Aye. And I vote aye. Okay, so the public hearing is closed. Next item of business is possible action.
I move to approve.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second. Okay,
I'll take
Scott,
that.
okay.
Santos has seconded. Scott has seconded, or moved. Scott has seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
That's gotta be a roll call.
Oh, that's right. It's also a roll call vote. Doug? Scott?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Santos?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Good luck, guys.
Well, I'd like- Thank you. We'll see you again when we decide how to do.
When you put the factory in, let us know.
Meetings and so there won't be another public hearing, so you don't have to go the next 2 weeks.
Next up, we now have a public hearing on proposed fiscal year 18-19 Muscatine County budget amendments.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sherry.
You got the detail in your packets, but I'll just kind of run over it briefly. For the sheriff's department, we had a JAG equipment grant that the $17-18 were not released by the federal government until this fiscal year. So we're picking up that expenditure and that revenue. So we didn't spend it in last year's budget, so we spent it and received the money in this year's budget. Investigations, we're increasing investigations $2,300 and vehicle setup $12,000. I don't know if you remember, but the sheriff talked about, he had an employee who did vehicle setup who went out of business, so now we're having to outsource that, and there's an increased cost to that. So, for the jail, food and equipment commissary, expenditures are up, revenues are up for the jail, $992,000 over budgeted. And this federal prisoner reimbursement of $677 is where we were at in May. We still have expected $250,000 to come in yet in June. So that's going extremely well. Medical examiner, deputy medical examiner overtime and autopsy and lab fees. That's a number when we do the budget that we have no idea how to estimate how many deaths there are going to be, and there have been, the last I knew, 80-some, which was possibly a record for a fiscal year, and the year isn't over yet. So we're hoping, because of what's transpired between when the budget amendment had to be published and today, that we may have to hold some bills until July, because this may not be enough to cover the bills that are coming in. We're gonna cross our fingers and hope so. County attorney depositions and interpreters is up, and that's because of court cases, trials, dues and memberships. The pro-law fees that had been paid previously out of the fine collection were paid out of the county attorney's budget this year. And the attorney forfeiture, $5,000. There's more money than that in the forfeiture fund, but the county attorney budgeted, I believe, to spend $10,000 and bought an item that was $15,000, so we're picking that up out of fund balance. EMS, the system development grant, we received $8,100 last fiscal year. the claims weren't put through until this fiscal year, so we're picking that additional money up. You don't see a matching revenue because we got that before July 1. Juvenile detention, $15,000, that's a number also that we just guess what that's gonna be, and we're over budget, so we're hoping this will cover that. For Muscom, we're moving, we had budgeted a $50,000 transfer out for capital equipment, and instead of, because we don't wanna transfer from a county operating fund to a Muscom fund, we're changing that to be an expenditure. So the transfer's already happened, but this allows me to count it as an expenditure in our financial reports, so that's a net zero. For zoning, $1,000 for well sampling, and then $650 for the service agreement for a copier, and reimbursed permit fees, $300. And then Board of Health, the Healthy Aging Grant, $3,000 in expenditures and revenues. The recording fees are down $28,000, and so the recorder decreased her imaging amount that she said she's not going to spend. The auditor, we're amending $12,000 for this round of election laptops that had been discussed. $7,400 for GIS training. In general services, $7,500 for the community services, building maintenance and repair. And in debt service, another $1,000 in expenditures and revenue for the SSAB TIF. So, in a nutshell, we're increasing expenditures $274,750. We're increasing revenue $1,091,900. So, a net increase to our fund balance of $817,150.
Sherry, do you know on the recorder's imaging what the status of that is, or how?
I'm not sure.
Have any idea where she's at on that?
I don't,
Okay.
I know there was nothing done so far, this year, so I'm not sure. I don't think they're finished, so I don't know if it's an issue with getting someone scheduled to come in and do it, or if she's taking a break from that right now, I don't know.
Or if it's a budget issue or what? Okay.
Yeah,
No,
well,
we
she
talked
had money
about-
budgeted to do it, that she's turning back in, so.
Yeah. But she's doing that because her revenue's down?
Well, and she said it hasn't been spent, so she's not gonna spend it this
Okay.
year. So, I think the issue with the revenue being down, when I sent out the email about budget amendments, and when she took a look at it, realized that she probably wasn't gonna hit her budgeted amount. Now, if things have picked up, she may, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Jeff has moved to close the public hearing. Santos has seconded. This is a roll call vote. Santos?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
I vote aye. Scott? Aye. And Doug? Aye. Public hearing is closed. Now entertain a motion to approve the two resolutions we have before us.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, on the first resolution, 06-03-1901, amending the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget, a roll call vote.
Aye.
Santos, aye, Jeff says aye. I vote aye. Scott? Aye. Doug? Aye. Okay. And on item 6B, resolution 06-03-1902, fiscal year 2018-2019 budget appropriations, Doug? Aye. Scott? Aye. I vote aye. Jeff?
Aye.
And Santos?
Aye.
Both pass. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
We're up to items with county engineer Keith White. Good morning, Keith. Stand dry.
Good morning.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but
We have two utility permits today. First is from Eastern Iowa Light and Power RAC of Wilton, Iowa. And they're rebuilding a line on Trolley Avenue, setting new poles, and also boring a cable on the shoulder of Trolley. That's the first one. The second is from Alliant Energy of Lisbon, Iowa. And they are relocating a pole on 130th Street. Well, it's just east of Iron City Avenue. They're moving it about 70 feet because that's where our new road we're letting next Monday is tying in. That's what we have.
I'll move to approve.
Jeff has moved to approve. Scott has seconded. All those in favor of approving these two utilities, say aye.
Aye.
Our letting next Monday on relocation of the connection of Iron City and 130th, which is eliminating a structure. We had a pre-construction meeting last week with Iowa for our hot mix paving work from last year that they were planning to start today patching in preparation for some of this work and basically hire construction as a sub doing removal for the patching. And they plan to start at Bancroft and work their way west, or excuse me, east. West wouldn't work very long. East and end up around the Wildcat Den project. But actual paving, we're looking probably the week of the 24th of June for them to start paving. We'll note on Bancroft, we are doing the Asphalt Paving Association for about 5 years has been promoting a richer surface design to reduce cracks reflecting. So we are trying that, if you will, on Bancroft. We did have a representative of the Asphalt Paving Association at the meeting to talk about, you know, what's the latest and greatest on that. I think it's gone through at least 5 specification changes in those 5 years. So they're getting closer to perfecting that, and it's becoming more common out there. Manat Seal Coat and Reclamation, they're not back yet, but the weather's starting to look a little more favorable, so we'll be talking to them to see when they might come back. And again, our 2 bridge projects, the one on 155th, they're still talking July or August, and the one on North Ice, again, mid to late summer. And north of, in Cedar County, north on Bancroft, Cedar's been doing a bridge replacement, which the roads have been closed for a considerable amount of time now because the contractor can't get up out of the water. So, I mean, that's what these bridge contractors are up against. And right-of-way acquisition, Bridge 163, which is the historic bridge up on 120th, we've got with 2 parcels acquisitions, and we'll have 3 of the 4 signed up there. So we think we'll be getting towards a letting this fall on that bridge project, so that's good news. G28, we did receive documents back from the Bridgestone attorneys with some minor markups that it's hard to understand why that would take weeks and months to put a few comments on there, but we've made changes and sent them back. And then I think some of you heard from Hickory Hills, but so they have a water main with a permit in the right of way. It's in the way that eventually we're going to have to figure out how to deal with that.
I forgot to well, we haven't had correspondence, but I did have somebody from Hickory Hills reached out to me. I don't know how many members are aware of that. Maybe you want to brief them. Keith, it sounds like when that subdivision was put in many, many years ago, way back, and I don't even remember when it was, probably in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Somehow, we agreed to have a private water line in the right of way, and now it's gonna be under our road. And so you have a homeowners association or a development of 20 people who've been moving on all these years, dead, apparently unaware that it was even there. And deal with the developer and the county or whomever, but, so they're faced with replacing, what, 800 feet, I think Dennis is,
Yeah.
of water line. So obviously not a great situation. You know, really, I'm trying to understand, Keith, why MPW does not own that, cause they're providing the service, right, and taking the revenue off that infrastructure?
Other than it's far enough back, and I'm guessing their policies have changed. Like the water main that services Mulberry Manor, and
Right.
then later on they allowed it to extend to Bryan Prairie, again at the subdivision's expense, but then they took ownership. I'm not sure, but they do not own this.
Well, I think, you know, in my mind, you know, and I don't know if we can facilitate this or how this happens, but I don't like the fact that there's a private water line in our right of way at all. And so if MPW needs to kind of take that over or whatever, you know, I don't know how the process has to happen. I don't know if we, have you talked to MPW about it much, or?
No.
Yeah.
Other than we tried to get them to locate it, which I'm gonna say they tried to assist, but did not.
Is it a
So-
4-inch line, or do you know what size it is? by chance?
6. 6, isn't it, Keith?
I think it's a 6.
Ductile?
Likely because of the era, but it's ductile coming to Mulberry Manor, which has had countless leaks. I mean, just unbelievable. So, but they have the standard, our standard utility permit, which says you'll move it if need be. It's not something you wanna leave underneath the road, because
Yeah.
inevitably, the one coming to Mulberry leaked, and where the water was shooting out of the ground, well, they just kept, you know, it doesn't necessarily come up right where the leak is, so they tore up a lot of pavement looking for it, farm water, so you don't want that to happen. So that will be something we'll have to grapple with down the road here.
Yeah, I think in my mind, the best course of action here somehow, and you know, the money is one thing, but also the long-term ownership and responsibility is the other, and the county is not in that business, and hopefully since MPW, that's part of their service, you know. I mean, that's always frustrated me. I don't know how, you know, you can take the revenue for those infrastructures and not take the responsibility for them long-term. It just doesn't, you know, that doesn't make sense to me. Right?
Yeah, no.
They're getting
I
all
know,
the,
and I do know that they charge, I think either a 10 or 15% more higher to, non-city, customers. So if you're out there on the bypass, they're charging you more money for that water. I do know that. I just, as far as this situation, I wasn't aware of it.
yeah, I don't think any of us were. Probably a surprise to Keith too, right?
It was. It was several of the issues.
I mean, what is our policy? Do we have a policy on, you know, permits in the right of way for private? I mean, we allow that? I suppose you have to some extent.
It would come before here, and again, it would be the, in past, I can't speak of, but we review them and we try to have them out of the way. You know, things get built where they're not supposed to be on occasion, but they have the permit that says you'll move it. But it's something we may wish to think about when it's not owned by a utility.
Yeah, I just think it's a, you know, I mean, this is a classic example to me. You have a developer who's probably long since not associated with the subdivision. It's been long since turned over to a homeowners association. And now you have people that are probably unaware or, you know, and may not be equipped, you know, since they probably weren't aware, it sounds like they didn't create any kind of a deferred maintenance fund to take care of that and all that. So now you have a handful of homeowners facing a, I don't know, what's that, $25 a foot to trench it and put it in, Keith?
No,
I mean,
like more like $100 a
yeah.
foot
Yeah,
for that size, yeah.
yeah.
And, I mean, they may be, I think MPW can directional bore up to 8 inch, but even in that situation, I mean, you have to look at it.
Yeah.
Keith. But yeah, it's not $25 a foot. That's a lot more.
That'd be presuming that Power and Water would take that on their own, right?
Correct. I mean, I think we need to have those conversations with them initially. I mean, it being from the 80s and then it's already had issues with it, they're probably not gonna wanna jump on board and take that ownership.
I don't know, has that one had issues, do we know? We don't know.
Not that I'm aware of, but
Yeah,
it very well
it's a
could
different
have.
one. They took the other ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they took the ones they're having issues
And
with.
it's 700 feet roughly?
Well, the length of the water main's quite long, but there's probably about that much that's gonna be underneath the road.
Yeah.
Oh, so the water line may be longer than that, and
Oh, it's way longer than that.
comes from Lutheran
It comes
Homes,
from Lutheran Homes all the way up.
all the way to that pump station up on the hill there.
Well, and then all the way on up to,
Could you give us a drawing of that, kind of like a bird's eye view of it?
Sure.
So I can kind of look at it and then we can have a discussion with it. I can make some phone calls to MPW as well too.
It's a mess. So I mean,
And it's not, and there's, I mean, granted, there's water mains under roads all the time. It's just a matter of how is it that they, you know, plan on if they ever had to do repairs for it. I mean, everything out here on the riverfront has everything underneath it. So, I mean, it can be done. It's just not ideal because now you're not just digging a hole to get to the pipe. Now you're cutting concrete out and then you're having to re-pour back in and you're having to make sure you have locates. If it's ductile, you know, if it doesn't have the wires to find it, you could be
yeah,
struggling to find it because it's not gonna, it doesn't pull magnetic. So they have to put tracer wires with it. So that's why if it didn't, you know, get installed properly, it may be a mess to find as well too. From elevation to where it's at location actually too.
yeah,
yeah, it would, I know it was such that Power and Water couldn't hook on it and locate it, cause we asked that they locate it, and they couldn't.
That's not good.
so, you know, this, it all goes to, you know, I mean, that gets to a, you know, kind of a board philosophy and policy, and I think that's something we should consider having a policy on the board for the engineer to follow, that, you know, me personally, I have a problem with, you know, a public right of way and private infrastructure in there. It might be great, you know, Jim might come in here and say, oh, you know, I wanna run this and that, and, you know, all well and good, but 30 years from now, he sells the farm and somebody else has it, and oh, we forgot to tell them, and now all of a sudden, they have this major financial responsibility that they were totally unaware of. And that's not good, cause it always puts you in a bad spot. I mean, this is a tough one, I think, we're gonna have to figure out. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, if you give kind of those bird's eye view drawings, and or you think you'll reach out?
Yeah, I'll let me make some phone calls to
Yeah.
some of those guys. I got quite a few connections in there. I'd like to at least get some of their input on why or
Well,
what we
it's
could possibly
kind of what
do.
could be done, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Keith, anything else?
Well, yeah, under other, I just wanted to mention, for for one, 152nd Street, I sent you all a picture when it kind of first went underwater, and then during the week here, I mean, I hadn't sent it, but I have the photo, I mean, it was totally underwater. Now this morning, I mean, the cedar's gone back down and only part of it's underwater again. But whether it's 152nd or 145th going down to Edgewater or Maple Grove, these dead ends that we spend a lot of money on. I think the board at some point needs to decide how much money you want to spend on these things, or if you want us. I had a brief discussion with Doug, saying how old are his parents, and I'm like, would you leave them down there in a flooded out road? I mean, we had the folks come in and say, you know, the ambulance, whatever, just because of our maintenance. Well, fire truck, ambulance probably ain't going in there when the whole road is underwater. So, again, you know, we spend a lot of money on those situations, and I think maybe it needs to.
Keith, when you say that, I mean, ideally, at the end of the year, can you come back and say, hey, we spent, 15 grand on 250th Street, or we spent 50 grand on 145th, whatever it may be that you mentioned.
We can.
When you say a lot, I mean, if we don't have a number.
We can, well, I provided that all to the board before you sat there,
Okay.
but.
I mean,
within
ideally
the
for
last
me,
year-
for me to be able to say, if there's residents living in there, I think we're gonna still have to do our
Well,
due
we're
diligence.
dealing with cabins that are supposedly seasonal residents
And
that are living there year round and expect us, the second that the floodwaters go, to pull off of all the other stuff. Jim might rather we were cleaning his ditch.
no, and that's
And go
understandable, but
take
what
care
I'm
of
saying
it.
is if we don't have, numbers to kind of,
Sure.
attach to that, for me to be able to
Well,
make
I
a
can forward
decision
you
on
what
that.
was given to them.
Yeah, we spend 50% more per mile on that stretch of road than we do on any other road. in
But
the
if
county.
we have a statistic that can show you what roads are showing it,
Yeah.
if he has, hey,
He
you
has
know
that.
what, all
Oh, yeah.
those,
Oh, yeah.
these are where my operators are at X amount of hours.
Well,
And then we do that at the end of the year. when we
One that
start
I missed
budgeting.
would be Jasper Avenue, where we were allowed to build a house down a very poor road, very, very, very poor road, with the resident agreeing that it would be a level C gated road, they'd take care of it. And just like somebody added the example here, then literally a few years later, circumstances changed, that sells, don't know what was told, but now these are the people that are all but demanding certain things, and I haven't devoted the staff time or my time to give you an exact number, but I think we're talking several $100,000 to service one person's driveway.
Yeah, that's probably.
You gotta decide if we're
that's
gonna
the
keep
case.
doing these things.
No, and that's what I'm saying, unless we could get those numbers, or I can't see any of that, I wasn't privy to any of that
Yeah,
before.
I can't remember if everybody was on that email or just you and Santos from the Smiths.
Which would the private drive one?
Yes.
I saw something on that on Jasper. And
Yeah,
I think that's true. The other thing is, and this is something we've been, people have been very vocal about some of these roads and situations, and, school buses can't drive down, and they're underwater. And we had the one couple that was concerned about the father living in the house, which is flooded. And I go to some folks and it's like, you see this on all the time, where you have evacuation orders due to flooding and stuff, and some people choose to stay there, and unfortunately, there's no consequence for those poor decisions. Those are poor decisions. And you're putting our emergency responders at risk, you're putting our public servants at risk, because they have, eventually something's gonna happen, I don't know what it is, but it will. And we're gonna have to go in there and rescue them, or somebody's gonna have to at great peril. And it, you know, there has to be something, you can be a little more forceful about, you know, some of that, because you wouldn't live in that place if it was, you really were inconvenient, you know, I know they treat it like an inconvenience now, but it's really dangerous to do that. It's just not a good decision.
Until the levee's repaired on 152nd.
That's not
like,
Yeah.
well,
That's not
that's
happening.
not up to us.
Yeah,
But that's what has to happen to stop what's going on down
I think I'm nuts, yeah.
there. The damage to our road.
right,
And Jasper Avenue is something that never should have happened. That
Right.
was, it's a level C road with a really nice property way back there and, it's gated. So to me, it's almost like it's a private drive.
How many days do you suppose, down at 152nd, how many days do you suppose that road's been underwater this year?
Other than a lot.
20,
How-
I'm
how
picking a
can
number
you-
out of the air.
I mean, it's more than just an inconvenience.
yeah.
We do on the ends, and they've been there, I didn't look if we know when, but they've been there a long time. On the end, we have a fold down water over the road sign. We do not close that road. We don't close it since it's the only way in and out. The people, they drive through it, and that helps cut ruts, loosen up the rock to wash away. Where you'll see the whole family coming through there in a four-wheeler.
I know they had a levee issue down on Iron City, and they repaired that, didn't they? The levee?
This year?
No.
No, I was gonna say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did they go about repairing the levee?
We pushed a bunch of crack into the hole, as I recall.
Well, I mean, who took the responsibility?
There's a short stretch of Iron City to the north of 22 that was designated a water control structure and not a levee because FEMA does not participate in levees, period. So it's called a water control structure. We got FEMA dollars to repair the damage to that thing, and it's something far short of an actual levee. It's something that the farmers pushed up 60 years ago. You know, we did fill in those cuts where Doug decides to go down and have a cabin and just, oh yeah, cut a hole in the water control structure. And we did fill those in and made them drive overs, plus a number of people had left since then. So it's not been threatened by a flood recently, but it will be again. I mean, that's just not high enough to control what's gonna come down that river.
Yeah, and when we took major damage on Iron City, the drainage district, did a lot of the work.
I believe there was about $150,000, if I recall.
Right.
Yeah, there was the washout.
Yeah.
So the drainage district took the responsibility.
Well,
Well,
we paid for it, they
yeah.
did it work.
Did it
Because
work?
it would have been it would have been, I don't know, I'm gonna throw out numbers off the top of my head, which you always have to watch, but I think the engineer's estimate at the time to repair the damages was around 700,000. And this board at that time balked at making that investment in that short stretch of road because there were options. And part of the agreement to put that section back in, the drainage district, we contracted the drainage district to do the work, and we got it done for about 150,000. That goes into, they don't necessarily have to follow the rules that the engineer has to.
With the the high estimate was FEMA's estimate and not ours.
Okay.
Which, you know, they didn't agree with our estimate, so they did their own, and then they redid their own, they just kept going higher and higher. And there was a program that allowed you to take 90% of that money and not fix the road. So we opted to take 90% of the money and not fix the road, which we spent that money raising B28. But later on, with public demand, it was opted to fix the road. And again, we said, drainage district, you do the work and we'll reimburse you. And that 150 is probably pretty close to right with their work and rock. So we figured we netted 400,000 to 500,000 and still help the people in that area. You know, that was also a levee that was, or a water control structure that was right along our road, and it also became the chicken and the egg. If you don't fix the protection, of the road's gonna wash out, and we're not gonna fix the road and there's no protection, so that ended up working out well.
Keith, I feel like we often have these conversations where we say we've got all these roads that are perhaps not that are not cost effective, that are serving only a few people, that are, you know, hideously expensive to maintain. And I think, you know, at certain points we've all more or less agreed that we need to do something. What is your thought on how we can begin systematically addressing these in a way that we're just not having conversations, but we can review the ones that are problematic and move forward like that?
There's, you know, probably a couple ways to move forward. I think one thing, we need to have a work session or discussion and let the board at least give us a general direction to head in. For myself, the obvious answer on a lot of these is to vacate the road and see where that leads. You know, in vacating proceedings, people are allowed to claim damages. And you can award damages or not award damages. You can vacate the road or not vacate the road. You can vacate it, no damages, they can appeal to court. You can always come back and say, well, okay, we'll unvacate the road. I think some of these, that would be the solution. I'm not gonna say all of them.
Would we have any numbers from DOT or anything like that as far as traffic counts?
Yeah, we have all that.
We do.
Well, that would be a big number to start with.
Well, some of them you wanna, like, take 152nd as a prime example. You have public hunting areas down there. So how worked up do you get about a public area and the road access? You know, hey, as I think I heard somebody say, well, why don't we just move the parking lot a mile further down the road and let them walk? And then, you know, having being somebody that would use an area like that, I'm okay with that. You know, it's a public area, it's supposed to be an outdoor recreation.
And if, in those cases, you could probably, you look at those discrepancies, but I mean, if it's vehicle traffic that is constantly
Right.
moving back and forth, you know, you can see that it's always at, you know, noon or at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I mean, I'm sure some of those traffic counts on the DOT can show that.
Well, I don't think that, I'm not sure on the county roads we have that level of detail, do we, Keith? Time of day?
No, they do, said, as costs go up, what they do is less and less and less frequently. But they were on about every 8 years of doing a supposed complete count, which we're due for. Their last one was in 14, I believe. but typically they count the major routes and they have formulas that they distribute the traffic. But we still have pretty good ideas. The numbers are probably of value relative to one another. Like federal bridge dollars, whether we're swapping them out or not, which we are swapping everything out. But you gotta have at least 25 vehicles per day to do that as a bridge project. I mean, it's just, again, I think somebody once upon a time looked at the money, and the money only goes so far, so if there's 5 vehicles a day on Jeff's Road, can we afford to be replacing a bridge on that? When they're saying not with federal dollars or swap dollars. Local dollars, yes, you can do whatever you wish. So, yeah, a road like 152nd, I would say is mostly the exception, as the folks pointed out, and that with hunting traffic and that. But, I mean, that first parking lot's not very far into the water. The other thing you see in almost all, you see it down by Salisbury, as you get near the bridge and there's a parking area, well, the water moves a lot faster with no timber or anything there to slow it down, so it's where you get washing, that and, you know, entrances. So, but I just think, again, it's a year that's really pointing it out, and you know, some of you may recall the drainage problem with Atalissa and meetings up there and everybody excited and gonna do more with the drainage, and then that all went away with dry weather. Now, will that, you know, will that come back again? But a lot of these, this kind of wet weather is what really points it out. I mean, you can have a high traffic road that we're not hardly having to spend anything on, put some rock on it, blade it, and be done for the year, not have to be back every time it floods. So I just think we need to look at those things.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't know how much rock you just put on 152nd. You spent, you know, you got out there and got at it pretty hard and you fixed it up pretty nice, and now it's underwater again. So all that work for naught.
Right.
Before we have any work session, I think it would be at least good if we had some traffic counts on some of those roads. And then if you do have that map, if you were to say, okay, these are the roads that I would like to, you know, have on a discussion
Sure.
2 months from now or 3 months from now as we start getting through this time. And then we as a board can start having maybe a work session scheduled to discuss some of those items.
That would be good.
Okay.
And I do know, Nathan, I haven't forgotten, you know, what you requested. As far as looking at some various items for priority, and that's something we will work on.
Well, I think that could be incorporated into this, you know, and for your information, what I was talking to Keith about was some kind of way of developing a rating system where we can, for every stretch of road, we can score, you know, frequency of use, demand, in terms of upkeep, the cost, those sorts of things, how susceptible it is to weather and that sort of thing. Just so we have a way of kind of systematizing our evaluation process.
And there's systems out there for that, like scoring systems that you can create, like a matrix that'll show you, hey, this road has this much thickness. This is probably another 5-year life. This has so much thickness, and they can kind of go through and kind of give you some of those different things. I know there is for concrete and asphalts. I'm not sure if there is something like that for gravel.
There is not for rural roads that I'm aware of, but it's something we'll still.
But maybe you can utilize something off that matrix that can kind of pick apart certain pieces that may be of value. You know, how long did you put something in? How often it gets ridden on? rain.
Well, it doesn't take you long, you'll learn, pretty soon you'll know the roads that are the problems. Cause the ones we always get called about, there's we have many miles of gravel roads, and you only hear, it's always the same ones, always the same spots, always the same roads. It's, so there's something unique about them that, and that maybe we look at that, the repeat or.
And there's actually not that many, Jeff.
No, it's a handful.
It's just a handful.
Yeah, it's a handful.
I wanted to change the subject real quick. You had mentioned something on Bancroft for, the asphalt.
Yes.
Is that a new asphalt that we're gonna be doing, that you're saying? You mentioned it was like it had new.
Approximately 5 years ago, the Asphalt Paving Association of Iowa, they really started pushing what they call a perpetual pavement. One of the things they were doing was a high asphalt, low voids content interlayer. Almost a rubbery type, I don't know, I have a better word, and paving on top, then a surface layer. Thinking down the road, you just have to mill the surface layer off and put one back, and then maybe farther back at that, but then they started taking that same inner layer and promoting it as a surface layer. So if you were to see Bancroft, it is got a lot of cracks, a lot of cracks. And what we've usually done with asphalt pavements that became rigid pavements because they're so dry is we've ground them up, so recycled or reclaimed them, laid that back down, and gone with 4.5 inches on top. Pretty standard thing. We've had this program for quite a few years now where we're doing thin overlays here and there throughout the county just to try and keep roads together until we have money to do something more extensive. And this year's, well, actually last year's program, we bid that short mile, 3/4 of a mile, to be with that mix. It's again, high asphalt content, low voids, very sticky to work with.
We've never done that before, or we've never
We
utilized
have
this.
not,
Okay.
we have not. And we chose to do that stretch to see what we think. Another road that's in this group is Wildcat Den, which has also got a lot of cracks, but we didn't opt to in the industry they call it oil, but the liquid asphalt can be a couple $100 a ton more for the asphalt that goes in this. But yes, that's, we're wanting to see if we think that works.
Okay. Yeah, that's like I said, I never heard of it, so just I knew it was something new when you mentioned it, so it's kind of see how it works and then give us an update.
And I had one other item to report on, is last Friday morning I met at Walcott with the city of Walcott and Scott County engineer to discuss maintenance of the stretch of gravel going into Walcott off the end of 110. And came away from there, I'm going to develop a proposed agreement to let them look at, and if we get something closer to an agreement, then we will bring it to you. What's really, understanding them, what's driving it on their end is right now Scott County has a number of roads coming into Walcott that they maintain, including this piece. but this piece is right off the end of our route, and they have to come through town to get to it. But, it's gravel, it gets potholes, they're getting complaints, and, you know, they want an agreement to take some heat off of them. And, you know, I did tell them up front, I'm like, if this thing is a big headache and we get like our Cedar County line agreement, Cedar County just says call Muscatine County and complain. I'm like, we aren't gonna stay in this, so, kind of speaking on your behalf, but, it makes sense for us to take that piece right off the end of our route and be compensated for it. But if it's a giant complaint and headache fest, I don't know why we would want to continue to do that. So we'll be working with them to try and come up with an agreement for that. I mean, right now we have, like, Cedar County, when they come down the east side of Wilton, they have to head across our road to get back to Cedar County to do their stretch. They plow that by agreement with us, very reasonable, you know, and just makes sense, they're driving over it. So, I think, as long as we don't gain a bunch of, complaints and headaches, I think it can be a beneficial thing. And probably as many Muscatine County residents going into Walcott as anybody, so I mean, I think it can help serve us. And they may seal code it on out to the corporate limits, which is the county line anyway, but right now they haven't, their council has not bid on that idea, so that's in the works too. That's all I have.
That's it, huh?
That's plenty.
Thank you very much, Keith.
Yeah, you bet.
Next up is item number 8, discussion and possible action to approve renewal of an Iowa retail cigarette, tobacco, nicotine vapor permit for Rife Oil Company, doing business as Stewart Road Fast Break at 2418 Stewart Road in Muscatine, Iowa.
Move to approve.
Jeff has moved. Scott has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Number 9, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the May 20th, 2019 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Jeff has moved. Scott has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 10, correspondence. I'll start with you, Santos.
I'd had a few calls and then an email that I forwarded to Keith in regards to 250th Street from Claudia Putnam on roads conditions, and he followed up with it. He's not in here anymore. And then I had about a half a dozen calls on the drainage district issues over the last couple of weeks.
Jeff.
Yeah, numerous calls in the drainage district. They had the conversations with those from the Hickory Hill subdivision on the water main under the road and their concerns there and their kind of quest for information. The other thing is, you know, it's a little bit about a committee, but the levy stakeholders, again, they are meeting very actively. You know, the court kind of said, no, we're not gonna participate in raising that 11 miles of levy. And so, one thing, we haven't had a lot of participation by Louisa County Supervisors, so we're trying to reach out to them to see if they'll start coming to the meetings. Because we're trying to figure out, you know, I think everybody says it makes sense to put that protection in, but, you know, who's gonna pay for it and how are we gonna pay for it? That's the question, and so.
As for me, I had several contacts regarding the drainage district. Scott?
I had one contact in regard to a resident on the Sweetland Road Hill up in 22 regarding speed on traffic. Now, granted, with the road closures and that, they've had a lot heavier traffic usage being routed up over the hill and on a new era, so they can parallel 22 to get to their points that they're trying to connect with. But that's the only thing I had in that regard. I'll follow up with CJ on that.
I
got a call from Sherry Leonard on the Copeland Cemetery, complained to the farmers get too close to the headstones. And I went to the auditor's office, and Julie gave me the trustees and their numbers, so I could pass that on to her. Susan Smith on 2088 Jasper, which is the single road, wanting some kind of an answer, and I told her that would be a board action, that would be the board's decision on what's gonna get done there. I talked to Jim about ditch and culvert, and I got a call from Don Sewell of a tree down on Maple Grove Road, and I called Keith and let him know that, and he showed me a picture this morning, it's underwater there, so I don't know if the tree's gonna get up.
May not be a problem.
Yeah. I will.
New type of water control structure.
All natural. Doug, committees?
I didn't have any committees, I just wanna remind everybody that this Saturday, or this Friday, June 7th, is the 12th annual Muscatine County Fair weekend for the fair, where they're gonna do the barbecue and the auction, and the barbecue starts at 5, the silent auction at 4 to 6:30, live auction at 6, and they're gonna have ribeye sandwiches and hot dogs for the kids.
On Monday, the 20th, had Conservation Board, and of course, a lot of the conversation was about the high water situation, and the work to be done down there is pretty much on hold at Deep Lakes Park. They did set the one restroom up at Discovery up there, and they've got to pour the access concrete walkways and so on and so forth to it, but they at least got that accomplished. That's all I have.
The only thing I had was the mental health region met on Monday the 20th. Main focus was, of course, the funding situation, which I've commented on that ad nauseum about, so not much to add there. One thing I was unfortunately not able to attend, I believe it was 2 Fridays ago, 24th, was the mental health court graduation. This is something that both the mental health region and the 7th Judicial District Board of Corrections have sponsored, helping folks who really don't belong in jail or in prison because of mental illness, trying to divert them back into the community and trying to get them set up to be self-sustaining and productive, and so that's just a program I think is really great, and just want to commend it to everyone. Jeff?
On the 22nd, I had the Bi-State Commission, and it's at a couple of levy stakeholder meetings. I don't remember what the dates were, but that was pretty much the extent of it.
On the 23rd, I had We Lead meetings for their monthly meeting, and then on the 30th, I had another one for the strategic goal settings with We Lead as well for the University of Northern Iowa.
Are they back, do they have people back in their apartments now? They're rentable again?
Not yet. They're
Not
about a
yet.
week, I think, out.
About another week?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And everything went well, and contractors got her buttoned up,
Yeah,
looks good?
it's looking really good. They're just
Good.
finishing up with the brick on the front facade now.
Hey, excellent.
Thank you. Number 12 is to receive information from county employees. Any county employees want to give us information? Okay. Item 13, items with the administration office. Item A is discussion and possible action authorizing the chair to execute the FY 1920 contract for specialized transportation services with Riverbend Transit in the amount of $7,000.
Move to approve.
Jeff has moved, Doug has seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
I have a comment on that real quick. Is there any way we can, I mean, I think this is a great service that we put on, and I saw it's basically promoted by our county. We don't have it on our website at all. I mean, so if somebody wants to find it or contact it, because I had gotten called on this, was just, how do they do it if they don't have a card like this? So then where do they go to as far as the website goes? And is it something that we as a board could just request that maybe we, even if it's just this front page that we have right here, it just kind of promotes what they do, could we have a link to that on our county page?
Absolutely.
I think it would be good to help promote it, and I didn't really know, because I started looking it up for it on our page when they asked me about it. I was like, oh, I know this is a number, but I don't know where to call, and I think it's a great service that we have and that we can provide as far as a board, but
Well, I've got the,
if we could have a link somehow, and I don't know where we would
Sure.
put it on, but I mean, I'm sure you could find it.
We have a spot on our website that just is community resources. That probably would be
Okay.
the best location for it.
And I think that would help promote it, because I really do believe it is a great service that we provide.
for anybody who doesn't want to wait, though, their website is just riverbendtransit.org. And you can find that and all the contact information from there. But yeah, if we can get it up on the site, I think that'd be great.
Just another added thing. Thank you.
Item B, discussion and place of action.
It should be
Authorize-
possible action,
Yeah, that's
sorry.
what I thought. It sounded weird. And possible action authorizing the chair to sign a Title VI non-discrimination agreement between the Iowa Department of Transportation and Muscatine County and related documents.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jeff has moved, Scott has seconded. Any discussion? Nancy, were you gonna say something on this?
Kind of as an explanation about why this is on there. At the DOT's request, I met with, one of their civil rights, a person from the Civil Rights Department, last Wednesday, and kind of talked about, all the requirements, if we're getting any federal funding for transportation projects, the stuff that we need to get in place. So this kind of updates us and gets us, where we need to be right now, so our federal funding isn't in jeopardy. There's also some reporting that we need to start doing annually, but the gentleman was very helpful with me in terms of where we get the numbers for that. It's not gonna be something that's a huge deal. But we're just going forward, we will be doing that annually to stay in compliance.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. If I can get back to my agenda. Item 13C is Resolution 0603-1903, suspending the collection of taxes. Anybody here discuss it?
Move to approve.
It is moved by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Santos. This is a roll call vote. Santos?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
I vote aye. Scott? Aye. And Doug? Thank you. Item 13D rather, discussion and possible action to approve the FY 19-20 salary schedule, which basically is a 3% adjustment to the 18-19 schedule.
And these are the numbers that were used in the budget process.
I move to approve.
Second.
Scott has moved, Jeff has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
13E is action to appoint 2 board members to negotiate an FY 19-20 salary for the county engineer. Any volunteers?
I can get on that.
All right, Santos, anybody else?
I can do it.
Santos and
I've done it
Scott.
for many years. Won't hurt anything.
All right.
It's good to have some continuity.
All those in favor of Scott and Santos taking this on?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Do we have anything else for anyone for the good of the
I don't
order?
have anything else.
All right, then we are adjourned.